So just like to say welcome and thank you for joining us today. We're joining us today for our sixth webinar. So I'm Karen McCormack. I'm one of the directors of DWSN, and for my day job, I'm the Property Searches Manager at United Utilities. So today we're joined by a special guest speaker as well. We've got Jason Harper, who is the NAV Account Manager from Thames Water. So welcome and thank you for joining us, Jason.
Thank you.
Okay, so today, we're going to be talking about understanding NAVs. Okay, so just a quick overview today. We've got Jason who will be talking about who and what are NAVs, and then we'll link that back to the relevance of NAVs to the CON29DW. If you do have any questions, please just drop them into the Q&A box and we'll answer as we go, or we'll pick any questions up at the end. We will also be adding a feedback form to the Q&A box. So it'll just be a couple of questions to help us ensure we provide relevant content of value to you. Okay. Not going to linger on this slide because if you've joined us before, you will have seen this plenty of times. It's just a quick reminder that the Drainage and Water Searches Network is an industry body for those who are responsible for producing the CON29DW residential and commercial products. Okay, so I'll hand over to Jason now.
Thanks, Karen. Good morning, all. As Karen's just said, my name's Jason Harper. I'm the NAV Account Manager at Thames Water, and for my sins. And yeah, this is just an overview, really, of the NAV market, what NAVs are, how many there are, and all that sort of thing. Do you want to move on to the first slide, Karen? So, what is NAV? NAV stands for New Appointments and Variations, and as it says there, they're limited companies that are appointed by Ofwat. They need a license to be able to perform as a NAV, and they discuss that with Ofwat, and they have to jump through various hoops in order to become a NAV. There are quite a few popping up. We had really that the NAV market has been going on for probably about seriously for about 10 years, but it's really ramped up over the last 5 years, really. I mean, we've gone from, well, Thames Water have gone from doing about 5 bulk agreements, stroke contracts, which I'll go on about later, about 5 a month to probably looking at about 30 or 40 a month now. So it's big business, and the question I get asked quite a lot is what's in it for the developer, what's in it for us, etc. So I mean, generally, I think with regards to the developer, a NAV can provide services, take over the services for the site, so the developer doesn't have to bother with water services, gas, electric, and sometimes communication cables, fiber optics, all that sort of thing can be done under one roof. So I think that's quite appealing for developers, whether they can just build out their development and just leave it to the NAVs to take on the responsibilities of billing the customers, putting in meters and all that sort of stuff. The NAV comes to us asking that the development or the area is free from assets, Thames Water assets. Well, let's just use Thames Water for the moment, but it's all the assets with regards to the water incumbents. And basically what they're looking for is an unserved letter that they can apply to Ofwat and basically say, we want this area. It's an area of 100 properties, for instance. It's a new development, and we want to take it on as the water incumbent. So we are responsible for the water and waste for that site. They can be either or. They can choose just to be water or waste, or most of the time they decide to do both elements of the water side of things. So they ask us for an unserved letter. We have to check. My job is to check that in our area, in our GIS mapping, that there's no assets within the site which have connection potential. And what that means is that the NAV can't just tap into something that we have already in the site, whether it be waste or tap into our water, because that could be an issue for us in other areas. For instance, Oxford is a very highly it's a very difficult area with regards to producing water and maintaining decent pressures around the area. It's being developed massively at the moment. So we've got a big problem with NAVs that come in and say, right, we want water for this area. We have to just check that there's no assets in there. We can give them a license, and we can give them a letter saying, yep, it's unserved. We've got no billing. We've got no live billing within the site. But we've also got to check that there's enough pressure to be able to deliver the water to that site. And this is where we're having a bit of trouble sometimes, where the NAV expects us to just turn on a tap and connect them to their 100 properties, and just carry on with them putting in the meters and just carrying on with the supply of water. What we do is we give a meter at the beginning of the site, so it's called a bulk meter, and we then deliver the water to that bulk meter, which then discharges the water into the site, whereas the NAV can then directly bill the customer within that site, and then we bill the NAV for our bulk usage of water. So in a way, it's a little bit like National Grid, where they deliver the electric, and then other companies bill off of that. And it's a bit like us. We deliver the water, and the NAVs have to then bill the customers for their money. Interestingly, the NAVs have to deliver the same price or value as what Thames Water would have done with that site as well. So there's no sort of upping the profits with regards to water usage. They have to give that water to the same price as Thames. So that's basically what the NAV does. There's a large user, and there's also consent as well, which we don't really have a lot to do with large user, and that's basically when it's a very, very large site, very, very large development, and so there's different rules. And a consent letter is sometimes when, especially in a London, when we have assets within our site which we can then consent to, where we basically say you can take over our assets, and we're happy to do that. But we have to go through certain legislation to be able to do that and give our assets away to somebody else. Okay, next slide, please, Karen. So competition, new appointments, variations, responsibilities. NAV's introduced competition into the monopolistic water market. It's not an easy word to say this time of the morning. But yes, basically, I think with regards to Ofwat, obviously, Thames and other incumbents, there is a bit of a monopoly going on with that, and I think that's what breaks up. The NAVs break that up and gives a bit more competition. So the NAVs can be appointed by Ofwat to serve new developments, and as I just said, and existing NAVs can also request variations on their appointments. So after they've had a NAV site, they can then increase on that size. So what we're seeing at the moment is different phases for different sites. So they'll start with phase 1, and then there'll be 5 phases, for instance, with that site, and then they can increase their size with regards to the bulk agreements that we then have to call a variation, and we vary the contract that we already have with them. The contracts are for a bulk supply agreement, that's the water side, and a bulk discharge agreement, and that's the waste side. And what normally happens is that we have to check that that we can deliver water, as I've said before, but also get rid of the waste that's on the site. And we look at pressures, we look at also capacity that the neighbouring area can take. And sometimes we have to, it's our duty, it's our right to be able to increase things like pumping stations for the waste side of things, and also boosters, which we need to get the pressure right for water. So we have to increase the booster size, sometimes increase the pipes in order for us to get the right pressure and the right water to the right sites, and also increase our sewer sizes. So that all has to be paid for, and we take that into our AMP periods, where we have to give water and the assets to increase the water and increase the amounts of volumes that we're taking for waste. And how we do that is by setting aside infrastructure charges. So we charge the developer and the NAV to contribute to the infrastructure of the surrounding areas. So we charge them to be able to bring forward the amount of work that we can do, so we can get the water and discharge on the waste in certain sites. Next slide, please, Karen.
Thank you. Just before we move on, I've had a question from Jamie Dobson.
Okay.
So he's saying, so by the sounds of it, with your example, Thames are acting as the wholesaler to the NAV, and the NAV is the retailer to the residential household customers within their area. Am I right?
Yes, that's exactly it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Little thumb up there. Good. Yeah. How NAVs work. NAVs can either source water from their own resources, boreholes. So far, that's not. I've not come across that at all. That might be where there's a better source of water, Scotland or northern parts of England, perhaps. Never come across that. And they can treat the wastewater and treatment plants. What happens normally in our area is that we have to make sure that the waste is going to our sewage treatment works. I'm not aware of any NAV sewage treatment works sites. They all get discharged into the sewage treatment works that we provide. So a lot of the time, again, we have to just make sure that that we can take on that responsibility, and we don't get people flooded out with sewage and or not get enough pressures of water to the sites. So it's quite it's not just I think the NAV sometimes get frustrated with us with regards to spending time on the contracts and making sure that we're not flooding anybody or not providing water. We have certain amount of SLA targets, which are measures from the water from Ofwat primarily. They allow us 28 days from receipt of a bulk discharge or bulk supply agreement to turn that around and get the right amount of technical information or knowledge within those contracts and give it back to the NAVs. So that's quite a challenge, actually, because we have to get quite a lot of people together to make sure that everything's correct and that we can actually supply water and discharge the waste. So we have 28 days for that. For an unserved letter, we have 21 days to check that out and make sure that that's okay. And but the 28 days is difficult. Once the bulk agreement has been signed by us, we need them to sign it and bring it back to us to make sure that they're happy with everything. And then the consultation normally is already with Ofwat. The Ofwat have 90 days, funny enough, to turn around their SLA targets, their service level agreement targets, in order to say to the NAV that they have a license for that site, and then they can be the incumbent for that site. So yes, they have 90 days, which consultation starts before we receive the application, and normally then they have another sort of 60 days, something like that, to be able to turn that around and give the license to the NAV for that site. Next slide, please, Karen. Is there a next slide?
Oh, sorry, is that not showing? Has that moved on?
It did, and it went back again, I think. There we go. So it says on there, new appointees, 9 new appointees have entered they entered the market, serving 1,000 sites and 85,000 properties. The NAV market is growing all the time, and it's something that we've seen an exponential growth within the last sort of 18 months. There are another 3 NAVs that have just received their license. That's MUA Water, or MUA, MUA Water. We've got Matrix Water, and we've also got Indigo Water, which is coming into the market as well. So there's going to be more competition between the NAVs, and I think Ofwat are hoping that eventually will start driving the prices down, and the competition and the service will be better. Hopefully that will be the case. But we've seen a massive shift where certain departments where we have our self-lay department, which normally dealt with the developers and the developers would lay the pipes, especially the waste and everything themselves, and go through that route. We have a sewer adoptions team who look into the way that the pipes have been laid from the developers to make sure that they can adopt the sewers and becomes Thames Water. That's starting to decrease, where the NAVs are taking over and they're doing it all themselves. And so we're seeing where it used to be a sort of 70-30 split between 30% NAVs and 70% developers dealing with the water incumbent directly. That's shifted the other way, and now it's more 70% NAVs and 30% developers dealing with the water incumbent directly. So it's forever growing, and it's something that I think we'll see more and more NAVs enter the market, and hopefully there'll be some really good competition from that. By the way, I did ask some NAVs whether what they do with regards to the CON29DW, etc., and whether they have to, as part of the license, have to give information with their sites. But unfortunately, none of them sort of came back and said exactly what their responsibility is with regards to that. So, but I think with regards to today, if anybody has any more questions that they want to send an email to me later on, I should have that information, and I'll pass that information on to Karen, etc., with what their responsibilities are with giving that information to conveyancers and alike.
Thank you, Jason. I've just got one more question from Katie Wise. So she's asking, how can the NAVs give competition to the authority waters when they are to charge the same price?
I think further down the line, I think with regards to, I think they look at it as having everything under one roof. They sell to the developer that they can do the gas, they can do the electric, they can do. I don't know. I'm assuming that they have to charge the same for gas and the same for electricity, but I think further down the line, the profits will increase for them once they have more sites. It's still I still don't know exactly how. I think they rely on quite heavily that they won't need to deal too much with the utilities and the assets that are within the site because they're fairly new. So those costs are minimal at the moment. But I think further down the line, I think that they're looking to increase competition and profits once they have more sites and they have more of a grip on all the utilities for that site.
Yeah. And I've just got another question from Glyn Johns asking, is there a list available of the NAVs that deal with Thames Water?
Any NAV from anywhere can deal with Thames Water. Yes, I can give you a list of the NAVs that are operating, and they operate nationally. They can go anywhere they like. Yeah, I'm quite happy to send a list over.
Thank you. Okay. So if we just move on, just want to try and link the NAVs back to the CON29DW production now. So this slide just shows the number of sites for the 3 largest NAVs suppliers across the DWSN member areas in England. And there in total, there are 1,388 sites, and that's just from 3 NAV suppliers. So when Jason talks about that explosion, you can see just how many sites that are now serviced by a NAV supplier. And as Jason's already mentioned, not all NAVs initially know about the need to provide that water and drainage information or want to provide it, and this can cause delays when we're trying to return CON29DWs. So they do need to provide access to the data and have those systems and processes in place to provide the information, which can take a little time to get set up. So there is a stakeholder management piece for DWSN and its members. We're trying to educate the NAVs as they come online about the need to provide the water and drainage information. And we are engaging with the larger NAVs to try and encourage the production of the drainage and water reports to the same high consistency and standards as the CON29DW reports. NAVs aren't in a position at the moment to join DWSN, but our desire is to have them as members. So if we just talk about the main issue with identifying NAVs or identifying who is the correct CON29DW supplier to contact. There are a couple of tools that we currently have available, and the main tool is the CON29DW website postcode lookup. The data in the postcode lookup, it is regularly updated. So as NAV data's NAV sites are released and the postcodes are known, that data will be updated in the postcode lookup. There are a few known issues. So depending on the size of the postcode area, you can actually have 2 suppliers, a NAV and a water incumbent, supplying the same postcode. And if the incumbent water supplier happens to be the centre of that postcode, then you will get that data returned to say that you need to contact the water supplier when actually your particular address or property sits within a NAV supplier. If that happens, your incumbent DWSN member will always advise you as to who to contact, and if it is a NAV supplier, they will advise you to go to the NAV. Another quite a rare scenario is, but some NAVs may actually only have a building. They won't have any of the assets surrounding the site. So again, if they're providing a CON29DW, they may not have an asset plan to give you because they don't actually have any assets supplying that building. They may just take over the supply as it enters the building. Thankfully, it's quite rare, but it does happen. And I know there are a couple of sites like that in United Utilities area. So the next couple of slides, I just wanted to give examples as to how it may look in the postcode lookup. So with this site, this postcode, which is in Tower Hamlets in the Thames area, this NAV was only granted in November 24, so it's quite a new site for ICOSA. This postcode at the moment isn't on the Royal Mail postcode site, so until it's added to the Royal Mail site, we won't have the data in the postcode lookup. So at the moment, you would get a response returned to say that we couldn't find your supplier. So again, in those scenarios, the advice would be contact your local DWSN member and they should be able to advise you who the supplier is. Okay, in this example, you can see this site was granted in 2009, so it's been there for a long time. This is managed by LEAP, and when you enter this postcode, it will return the data for LEAP networks. And if we have the details of the NAV, we will tell you who it is and we will provide you the contact details so you can get in touch with them. Okay, so if there is another alternative lookup that you can use as well, and that's directly through the Ofwat website. So we've put the web address there that you can go to for the NAV market. And if you go into NAV publications and the NAV consultations, you will get the spreadsheet there of all the up and coming NAV consultations. Unfortunately, you can't search by postcode because most of the NAVs, when they're applying, it's either through a development name or road or town. So it's not the friendliest to search through, but you can have a look through there. And if you know the name of the development, it will give you the details of who's applying to be the NAV. So it's just another alternative lookup, and this should have all the latest applications so you can see what's coming through. Okay, so finally, I just wanted to talk about some of the cross-border considerations as well. So again, just trying to show here just how many water-only sites we have within the member areas. So currently there are 691 sites across England where the NAV is supplying the services for water only. So all this means for a DWSN member is that when we come to provide a CON29DW, there are a lot more considerations now or occasions when we need to contact a cross-border supplier to get the billing and water information. So again, this is where if it's a new supplier coming online and we may not have a relationship with that supplier, it takes a little bit of time to get them set up, educate them about the information they need to provide, and then get the data coming through. So this market is very much still in its infancy, and this can lead to delays in returning some reports, just depending on how well the supplier is set up. The larger suppliers, we have relationships with them now. They seem to go a lot more smoothly, but as Jason mentioned, there are some new suppliers coming online. Some members will provide an under investigation report. So if you can't wait for the report and you do need a response back, they can send out an under investigation response, and then when the information comes through, they will just update it and resend it. So again, it's worth talking to your local CON29DW supplier if that is, if you need a report returning more quickly. So that's really all I wanted to cover just on NAVs. So does anybody have any additional questions that they'd like to ask? Okay, if there's no questions, I'll just let you know we've dropped a poll in there just to understand what you would like to, what topics you'd like to know about in the future. So if you could, if you've got any topics you'd like to hear about, then please let us know. Okay, so just pop up here a reminder of the support that's available. We've got the CON29DW website, and you can find the postcode lookup on the home page. So I will just thank you for your time today, and just to let you know, the recording will go up on the DWSN YouTube channel, and we'll notify you once it's up there. So again, thank you for your time.